It's game
Ouch.
time again, folks. Welcome to the Three Blind Mice podcast. I'm joined as always by my two former officials, Don Nardecki and Jim Borgia. We are also the co-authors of this fabulous new book, The Official's Tales, available on Amazon Kindle and Amazon Books. Remember to push the like and subscribe buttons as well as the alert button to get reminders of when we post our next video. Thanks for joining us again. Today's topics are kind of basic. We're going to go over how the differences is of officiating lower level sports to the upper level sports, and even the differences in how we officiate talent. And we're also going to go over, because we always talk about this. We're in the middle of the NBA championship rounds. People ask us about different calls and whatnot. So we're going to go over the three most misunderstood rules in basketball. So without further ado, Don, you're going to be telling us about how football is officiating at different levels, fifth grade, maybe all the way up to varsity, maybe even in the collegiate level. So give us your perspective as a longtime football official, me too, how we handled the different levels.
Well, the rules are the rules, same all the way from high school varsity on down. They play by the same rules. At the younger levels, some leagues will have written rules that are going to be make the rules applied a little different or add extra things in there. But you got to realize where these kids are starting. And this goes through junior high in scrimmages, which are run a lot different. For high school, we do a lot of stopping and demonstrating bad alignment on the line of scrimmage. That's one of the things when these kids play in the backyard, when they play in the summer passing scrimmages. It's really loosely officiated, and they don't get good structure on where to stand at the line of scrimmage. So number one, that's one of the things we have to do when we're working with fifth and sixth grade and seventh and eighth grade kids. Uh, the fifth and sixth graders, maybe for half a season, we have to make sure they're relatively in the right spots. There may be a head leaning into the neutral zone, which would normally be a flag, but we have to take into an account how these prepared these young kids really are, and kind of let it fly a little bit. And if we usually address that with the coaches before the games, and maybe ask how their kids are playing at what level and what do they know about their opponents. And we're not trying to dictate who wins the game. We're trying to do with fifth and sixth grade kids especially, make sure they have a good time. Make sure we don't want to be yelling at these kids. We can coach them on the field, stop the clock, coach them on the field where they need to be, because obviously they haven't gotten it very good in practice. They're worried about other things, but you got to
Mhm.
have fundamentals. So there's a lot of times we've taken the time out to kind of set them on the feet of the tackle on the feet of the guard, and the guard's feet should be behind the center's feet, because the center's allowed to be over the ball, but the rest of the line is not. So that's one of the big things. Holding. Where do you call it? Blocking at fifth and sixth grade. Hey, as long as we don't see a jersey pulled in the vicinity of keeping a defender away uh, from the ball carrier, we're going to say something to them. Hey, you can't hold like that. It could be a foul next time. Never say it's going to be a foul next time, because they back you
Right.
into a corner. But
Right.
it could be a foul next time. You got to do better. Stuff like that. The coaches see it, and of course, as soon as they see that, they want the other team moved back 10 yards. So you're going to get it, and just say, "Hey, coach, we're not dictating who's winning. We're dictating who's learning." Okay, and kind of do it that way. Uh, Other things, hitting the passer late. They got to learn there that you can't you can't bull into them when the ball is gone. And for people that don't know, At the upper levels, the quarterback, he sees a pass is coming, he sees a defender coming, and generally everybody that's a referee will yell, "Ball's gone," as loud as he
Mhm.
can as soon as it's at his fingertips. And at that point, we expect the defense, if they're coming right on a hard line, we expect them not to continue on that hard line. We want to see an effort to lessen the blow. We want to see an effort to go right or left. You coming right at them, it's going to be a 15. But
Mhm.
that's what we want to get these kids to do, to start listening. They should know what's going on. They should have their heads up as they come across the offensive line. And we want them to see that passer and keep it a safe game for the passer, not stick that helmet into the in a quarterback's chest. Same
Mhm.
thing on the sidelines. Uh, you have to realize that there's going to be contact on a sideline play to make sure the kid's tackled. But if the kid's already out of bounds and two guys are coming in, at about a 50-degree angle at each other's sideline, there's going to be contact. There's not much room to go when there's other players there too. But what we want to
Yeah.
see is an attempt to lessen that contact. Trying to reach out and not explode not explode your arms into the player, but put them out to try to keep from having that hard contact with the player. Whatever you can do, you show me your attempt to slow down, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Um, Substitutions are going to be late, and in the kid games, lots of times a couple offensive players are staying with the coach behind the court, behind the offensive backfield.
Mhm.
They're subbing in. The idea is get kids in the game, not penalize a kid who's 4 steps from going off the sideline at the snap. So those kind of things, you want the kids to enjoy the game, have a good experience, learn a little bit. Seventh and eighth grade, maybe the first couple games. After that, they should know it. Uh, it's good if those kid games, if you've got an official on both sides, because they can work with the coach. Lots of times I said, offensive line coach, come here, please. And I say, look at your guard tackle right side. Man, they're
Mhm.
way off. We got to get them back. And they're thankful for that,
Oh yeah.
and now, and we don't use those uh, walkie-talkie type radios at the lower level games. We do on the varsity games, but it might not be a bad idea to have those if everybody's got one that's working a junior high game, because that's how you can get the word. I mean, on Friday nights, I would, if I'd see it on the line of scrimmage, I'd tell the umpire. If it's a defensive player, I'd tell the referee, get in the huddle and tell the right tackle to get back, and that type of stuff. Keep the game moving. Don't look for those little fouls that really do. Right tackle's offside, play goes left. You're supposed to throw it at the line of scrimmage when it happens. You can
Mhm.
wait a second, but you can't let a kid continually get away with that. You've got to get word to somebody to get that kid right. And I've had head coaches, if the head coaches are usually in line of scrimmage where we are. I say, Coach, come here, take a look how your kids are lining up on the other side of the ball. You got to get somebody out there to tell them to straighten up. So he'll send in a sub, for somebody and say, we got to do better here. That's the old way. Now sometimes we get the quarterback. So yeah, there's a lot of things we do different at the
Sure.
lower levels as we
Sure.
go up. If we see something that is continually wrong, we might stop it and have the coach come out when we explain it to the kids.
Yeah.
It's the whiteouts. It's really pretty simple to figure out where you're going to stand if field's marked correctly. So they still have to learn. And when I look down there, and the kids will say, "Well, the ball's right on the line. That's right where my foot is." And I says, "Your foot can't be where the ball is. It has to be behind the point of the
Find it.
ball."
Mhm.
And you've got a whole yard to be within the ball. So you got 3 feet that you can be correct in if you've got just part of your body there.
Mhm.
So that's kind of it in football. Those are the big things you see early in the season. Try to get those right, and you don't have to worry about how you're going to handle those things. You can watch the game a little bit. The kid games are fun. It's the moms and dads that get crazy on the least
Mhm.
little thing, and you penalize a kid for being offside twice.
Yep.
Coach is going to yell at him, "Hey,
Yep.
that's not a fun thing." We just want everybody to enjoy it there, football.
Well, I will tell you, Don. Now, going just to stick into football. And there, it happens in basketball too. I know for us, when we were working games, there's times that we're describing things to the coaches as well because they're not understanding what we're trying to call. Like versus, well, that's not what I see on Sundays, or my favorites or what happens in the huddle pregame. Like Denny Foles was the king of that, where he would mess with the kids, and whatnot. But and trying to avoid errors to start the game, like when you get the choice. I won the toss. Do I want to receive or do I want to defer? Well, then you have some kids, they don't get that. They just say, well, I want to kick. Well, no, no, you don't. You either want to defer or you want the ball. You don't want, and honest to God, Don, this actually happened when my son Randy played at Delta. Randy ass night, horrible. And Delta had won the toss, and the officials obviously wrote down that Delta kids must have said, I want to kick. Well, they kicked both halves. That happened to me once during a game, and we told the kid, no, 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 you want to defer. So, and I happen to know one of the head coaches for the team that would have screwed up. And I walked over and I put my arm around him and I said, "Boy, you guys must have a really good defense this year." And he goes, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, apparently you guys want to kick both halves." And he goes, "What?" Who said that? And I'm like, "No, no, coach, no. We no, no. You deferred." He goes, "Man," he goes, "that just happened to us last week." And I'm like, "Seriously?"
Well,
I'm like,
yeah,
"Well, I
it
mean, it
got to the
happens."
point where some of those Saturday morning games, the freshman games, or the JV games, I would say, okay, here are your options. You can have your choice to start the second half,
Mhm.
or if you want your choice in the first half, you can defend a goal of your choice, kick, or receive and go on offense. I try to go quick over the first two
Exactly.
and then give them the obvious if they want to do it in the first half. And if they say, well, if they say we want the ball, I said, so you want them to kick the ball to you? He said, yes, sir. You can
You
ask them
can get
another
out of it.
question until you get the answer you think they want.
Right.
And then when you do that, then you turn to the other kid and said, well, they want you to kick to them. Which way do you want to kick? With the wind behind your back, which would be that way, or the wind, or into the wind, which would be that way, and try to help them out a little bit because
Sure.
nothing worse than a Saturday morning. Those coaches have been with the varsity team the night before. If they're at
Sure.
home for the Saturday game, they were on the road Friday. They came home. Did the coach have them looking at film for a series or two before they went home? They had to get up to be there before anybody. They're not. They're not ready to face the day, and they're not in the best of mood if they think if
Right.
they think a kid made a mistake before we even started first play.
Well, my other favorite is too at those levels, Don, where there's a penalty and it's up to them whether they want to take it or not. We
Mhm.
would ask it in such a way as to say, no, you kind of want to, you want to decline this one. I
Yeah,
mean, we
I've
can't
told
say
kids.
that. We can't
Yeah, I've
say
told those
that, but
captains before. I said, I'm good. I said, if there's a trick, if there's one with the trick option, we're going to let your coach know. But other than that, the offsides, the stuff like that,
we're just moving it.
there's really, I'm going to tell you, 5 yards on that penalty. Do you want it? I'm not going to give you a chance to say no. You want
Yeah,
it, don't you? And we just move
it's
along.
that's how it
And we
goes.
know after years the ones with the loss it down or something like that that even at the lower levels, these guys haven't had to make that decision very often. They have to know
Mhm.
that. So, right away we'll tell the wing guy before we even talk to captain, loss it down on this. And then we go to tell the captain. I'll say, now you look right over at your coach because this is a tricky one. If the coach is giving us a signal right away, I said he wants the penalty or he doesn't want the penalty. And then we have, you okay? And I said, well, it's for illegal man downfield or it's a pass interference or something like that.
Oh yeah. Well, Jim, you're up now for the basketball part of it. I know you're a football guy too, but we're going to put you on the spot for basketball, and then we'll sort of fill that in. So, what is your take on, say, doing a junior high game versus doing a varsity game? Now, not just a varsity game, but maybe a varsity girls game versus a varsity boys game. Or a varsity game at, say, a Division 4 or 5 school versus a varsity game at a Division 1 school. So, take it away.
Well, it's just like Don said. You got the high school and the JV teams, and maybe even a freshman team here and there. And then you got your junior high. And then I used to, from time to time, do 4th and 5th grade on a Saturday morning. And they had certain rules that, okay, the first half you couldn't press, or the second half you couldn't press until they got past midcourt. And then you run through some of the other rules that some of the coaches tell the kids how to guard the person with the ball or how to set a pick when they're on offense. Well, you can't move with the ball, and you can't stick your hands out. So you got a wingspan so they can't get around you. I've always told the coaches, I says, Coach, my looking of all the games and stuff at junior high level and at this level, I said, your main thing right now is to teach these kids how to dribble with the opposite hand. Learn how to bounce pass. This is the thing that as they move up a level each year, the coaches at that level are gonna teach them how to set that pick. They're gonna teach them how to guard their man. Teach don't put your hands on. I can remember one Saturday morning I had a game and. Something happened, and it's like, wait a minute. Coach says, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. So what? I brought the other guy over that did it on a regular Saturday morning where I did it, like one every 3 weeks or whatever. I didn't know exactly what their rules were. And I had asked him, and he said, no, this is what happens. And I turned to the other coach. I said, Coach, is that the rule? He said, yes. I said, then we can correct it. We had one time where you get young kids to run the scores clock. In this 4th and 5th grade, what they do down here in Norwalk at St. Mary's, they would take and clean the scoreboard off after each quarter. So as if to say one team was better than the other, maybe you win that quarter. So you didn't feel like you got defeated, but you won a quarter and everybody's happy. But then there's some of these coaches that a point wasn't put on the board one time. And this coach come down and he's yelling at the kids at the table because they had started talking amongst themselves, not paying real attention to the game. And when I turned around, I saw him over there yelling at the kids. Right away, I blew the whistle and stopped play. I walked over and said, what's the matter? What's the problem here? Well, they didn't put a point up for us. I said, Coach, go over and sit down with your team over here. And I had quick looked at the kids and said, listen, we got 3 teams out here. This team, and you guys and us. Keep communication over. You can't do any talking amongst yourself while the ball is live. If you want to talk, wait until you hear the whistle and we stop play for a timeout or something. That way the coach doesn't come over and yell at you. The same coach had a daughter playing on the team, and we're on this cafeteria-like floor. So when you stop, yeah, you're going to travel, but we allow you to slide a little bit, okay? So it's not too obvious. Now, if you're going to go maybe a foot, that's okay. But when you go about 3 foot, I got a little problem with that.
Mhm.
I had called it on this one girl, and she just kind of looked at me, dropped the ball, turned, walked away. I looked at the younger official that was working with me, who is there every Saturday, and I pointed to him. I said, "I want that player back here." And the girl came back. She kind of looked at me like, "What?" I said, "Now, next time, get the ball to me or my partner so we keep the game going." And she kind of gave me a look like, "I don't got to do that," or whatever. And I said, "You understand?" She finally said, "Yeah." Walked away, up and down the court a couple more times, and this time she did it again. Well, this time she slammed the ball and it went rocketing up. And I'm thinking, in a high school game, that would have been an automatic tee.
Mhm.
At this level, you put them on the bench instead of being out in the court. You've caught their attention. I walked over to the coach and said, "Coach, I want number so and so down out of this game right now." I said, "Why?" I said, "Coach, you did see that ball go flying up in the air, right?" I said, "In a varsity game, technical, we're done with it. We move on. But at this level, if they're sitting there beside you, they might have thought, what did I do wrong?" Well, as the game ended, wouldn't you know it, that this little girl was Daddy's little girl that was the coach that was yelling at the scores table. And again, you getting down there early, I had one Saturday too, was down there, and I saw a friend of mine. He was on one side, his ex-wife was on the other side, and I knew the situation. I knew of them because they used to live across the street from me. And their son was standing by the bench, and he happened to have his shorts down and his shirt not tucked in. And I walked over to him. I looked at him. I said, "Can you do me a favor?" And he looked at me like, "What?" And I said, "Why don't you pull your shorts up, tuck them in, because you're going to need to do that in a couple of years. So you might as well learn to do it now." And he stood there for a second, and all of a sudden pulled the shorts up, tucked his shirt in. I walked away, and as I'm walking away, this coach sees this, and he stopped me and said, "What did you say to him?" I said, "About what?" He said, "I've been trying to get him to do that for I don't know how long." I said, "Well, you're the coach. What? There's nothing more to be said. You either do it or you'll be sitting on the sideline with me." And as we got up and down a couple more times, I happened to be on the side where his mother was. And she whispered, she says, "What did you say to him?" And I told her the same thing I told the coach. She said, "Thank you. Thank you." I'm thinking, you're the parent. Why ain't you telling? I mean, you see so much of it, and then you get to the next level, and then you learn all the other things. I try to get in there, like Don was saying about the tackles being over the line or the guard. I try to go in. Now you can't do that. You got to keep your hands down, and you can't move. You got to stay still.
Right.
I said that's how you set your picks. But it's again, as you go up to the next level, they teach you something different. Learn to dribble with the other hand, because once a coach sees that you can't dribble to the left, they're going to put that guy on your right side, so you got to go to your left. And that problem solved real quick. And you get out there, and many times the three of us, we'd have a game, and we get out there and talk to them. Keep your hands off, listen to us underneath, we'll talk to you. We don't want to go from one end to the other and shooting foul shots. We didn't come out and watch a foul shooting contest. I remember in an earlier broadcast we had talked about it, where one night we had got there, and it seemed like we weren't going to get out of there. Well, they had a couple of younger guys doing the JV game, and it seemed like they had to toot the whistle at everything they saw as if they were out on the blacktop. And for some odd reason, we went. The first quarter ends, and both teams five apiece, and we're looking at one another like, oh, it's going to be walking back and forth this second quarter. I went to check the books in between quarters, and as I'm walking by, a good friend of ours, Chris Sheldon, who he played for his dad, and his brother Dave, who's down at Buckeye Central. Oh, I'm sorry, Colonel Crawford. Had played for their dad, and as I'm walking by, I could hear Chris talking to his players at Western Reserve. Dude, you guys listen to what he's saying to you underneath. I heard him tell you that at the beginning of the game. We start the next quarter, and we called a total of 3 fouls the whole quarter. 3. That's it. We never got another one-on-one. And it's just at each level. And then, then what you have sometimes is we're talking about boys and girls varsity. If you know the teams and you know you're going to have a good game, then you'll allow them to play. You talk to them a little bit more. Get your hands off. And as we're going back and forth, it's like, okay, hands off, and you keep talking. And if they don't listen, all of a sudden, boom, you got it. And as you walk by, you say, hey, I was telling you. And then you get one team that might be the worst team in the league, the other team the high top of the heap. But for some odd reason, and I know Don and I had a game down at Mohawk, just south the Tiffin area. And that night they were playing North Baltimore. And at that time, North Baltimore had a very, very good team. And in fact, they had scored in the hundreds a couple different times. And for some odd reason, as they were warming up, their buddies on the sideline, they're high-fiving them and everything because, hey, we're here. It's a W. Well, surprise, surprise. Boys ended up getting beat, not by a couple. They got beat by 25 points. That's a whole different story. Now, it's the same thing as the girls. Now, you go to the girls, you could possibly get the same situation I just talked about, a good team and a bad team. And I remember one night, Don and I had a game down in Shelby, and they were playing Plymouth, and both teams were packed with good ball players. And places to sell out for girls, and that's very rare that you see that. And this game, I believe, was on a Friday night, which they finally started moving the girls to playing on Friday night because they seem to get a better crowd. And you let them play. They know how to play. You do the same thing. Keep your hands off. And there you go. It's just that easy to officiate. And I've had people ask me, would you rather do a boys game or a girls game? And I had to laugh. I'm thinking I'd much rather do a boys game because as a guy, I can kind of predict what the next play could possibly be, whereas the girls, you got about a 50-50. But I told the one guy, or the one person that told me one night, I says, but I do like going out there with the girls because they smell much better than the boys, just because, up and down the court a couple of times, boys have worked up a lather, and boy, I just want to get away from them guys.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the ups and downs of the junior high up to the varsity, and hopefully a lot more coaches, hopefully that, will stick around, because parents yelling and screaming, not only at us, but the coaches too. And you're not going to be learning anything. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. And then when your grandchildren are about ready to start playing and you're excited to watch this, there ain't going to be nobody out there.
That's right.
There won't be nobody out there to coach. There won't be anybody out there to referee. Then what you do is you pull them right out of the stand, seeing that you've told us that you know how to officiate. Come on down. Let's see how easy it is,
You mean like the
and see how you like it getting yelled at.
We did
like
have an
the-
example of that with the coach when Rick and I, at the end of our careers, when we were doing some freshman games, and the team from Shelby had a very, very good freshman team. They played here at Norwalk, and I did not blow my whistle on what was a pretty obvious foul. A Norwalk player fouled. Shelby players. Norwalk was pressing, and ball came in top of the key, and the kid pivoted, ball above his head, snapped a pass, got fouled. Well, I was in a good spot to see where the pass was headed, and was headed to a player streaking to the basket. He picked up the pass, threw it to his partner, easy layup for Shelby. And the coach going, "Why didn't you call that foul? Why didn't you call that foul?" And I said, "Coach, it's almost halftime. I'll explain to you when we come out." And when he did come out, I said, "Coach, owe you explanation on that." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "The end result was you got an easy basket." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I saw what was going on, and you'll find out." And this was a freshman coach, because the high school coach wouldn't have complained about it with the basket at the end. I said, "Us two guys have been around a long time. We have a patient whistle. First, when we see contact, we say, does it, first thing we look at is advantage, disadvantage. And usually contact is disadvantage.
Right.
But in that case, I saw the pass. I saw the player streaking down the floor. I saw the pass going. I'm not going to stop that. I'm going to let it go."
Wow.
I said, "And as you get more older officials, because usually freshmen get young guys, I said, as you get older officials, you'll see more guys with patient whistle, and
Oh, yeah.
don't think they have to blow the whistle a fraction of a second before the contact they see coming. Yeah, look at the whole thing: disadvantage, advantage, disadvantage." So, and
That's right.
that situation is in this wonderful book. In one of the sections that I explain it a little bit better, but it's in there, and it's a good time to talk here about Officials' Tales. We've been telling you about it for 6 or 7 shows now. It's on the market. It's available at Amazon. You can get this paperback. It's right now. It's on an official launch price of $16.49, down from $18.99 retail. And this would make a great Father's Day, Grandfather's Day gift coming up here. I think anybody that's a sports fan will get fun. This is not a novel. This book is a novelty, because we have never seen a book written by officials that has so much fun and games and pranks and whatnot in the book. Actually, telling people some of the fun things that happen. We hit on some of the weird things that coaches have said or did, but it's all true. There's nothing in there that isn't absolutely true. And the best stories are stories when the three of us were working together the last few years of our career, because some really funny things happened, and you get each of our memories of it, and they're pretty close, but the different parts are hilarious. So
Oh, yeah.
you want to get on Amazon, look for Officials Tales. And if you want the Kindle version, you put in there Officials Tales ebook. And if you're just looking for Officials Tales, you put Officials Tales book, and it should take you right to that spot.
Or if you see this guy, our top sales rep,
Hey, there he
we'll
is.
have one available.
Hey, and true entrepreneurship, he's selling them right out of the trunk of his car for $15. We can undercut Amazon a little bit, so actually the three of us have them. But here was Jim walking in to make a sale somewhere, and
Yeah. Well, I would say we were coming out from Mother's Day dinner over in Port Clinton, and my sister-in-law said, "Well, let's see the book. Let's see the book." And I pulled it out, and she's, "Let me get a picture," because she wanted to send it to my nephew because we had been talking about this book, and before we sent it to the publisher, I let him read a couple of things. I said, "Now, when you read this section, you got to understand that the two clowns I'm working with were like three sheets to the wind that night, and you just can't believe everything. And are you going to believe somebody that you don't know, or are you going to believe your uncle? That's the thing. But she took this shot, and then she said, "I'm going to send it to Andy, who's my nephew." And but it's funny because it's and we didn't even get some of these. Every now and then, as I read one of our stories, I'm thinking, well, damn. I said, the one night we did this, and this ain't in this book. At the end, when we're thanking everybody, I might even want to do this. Do we still have a little bit of time where I can tell about this one woman over at Old Fort?
Save it for next week. That's a
Save
good
it for
story.
next
Okay, we'll
week.
save it for next week.
We're going to do
Yeah.
story time again.
We're going to do
Yeah.
story time next week.
Yep.
Actually, we're a little bit long this week, so we're just going to go over one of
Okay.
probably the biggest misunderstood rules, and that's the block charge. And I'm going to leave that to Don, who was our rule interpreter for several years, to go over what we would do, what we look for, and how we would handle it so we didn't have the large call. So, Don, take it away.
Okay. There are different rules that apply to a person dribbling or in possession of the basketball as far as how they can move when they have possession of the ball. You hear give them time and distance, before there's contact, whatever. So the defense's responsibility is to get and maintain a legal defensive position. And what that basically means is both feet on the floor, legally inside within the parameter of the body, the width of the body, and be facing the person you're guarding. So if you've got both feet on the floor, legal guarding position means facing your opponent. And then if you can beat your opponent to the next spot without changing direction, you can move. My gosh, this rule has allowed defenders to move while they're guarding someone. But the thing is, if you step into the offensive player, you commit a foul. If you stick your leg out to try to pick him off, that's the foul on you. But if you can get there and keep that established guarding position, have both feet on the floor before the contact occurs with that player, most likely going to be called a charge, an offensive foul. Sometimes you'll see a long pass down floor and somebody anticipating their opponent catching the ball. So, on a fast break, so the ball's in the air. You see what's coming as a defender. You go down into the area where it's going to be caught, and you go a couple steps in front of the potential receiver. If that receiver catches the ball, has 1 foot on the floor, and there's contact, okay, now that might be on you if you're not legal yet. But if that offensive player catches the ball, comes down, both feet on the floor, 1 foot, then the other, both feet at the same time. Once that offensive player has control of the ball, catching it, and lands, he's responsible for any contact on a defender. So if he has basically a long jump to get it, it's going to be tough to stop his momentum going forward. And sometimes you see that into the key. You'll see somebody set up there, and his momentum carries him into it. That's going to be a foul on the offensive player. Now, guarding like that for a defensive or for an offensive player without the ball is a little different. That's where it gets confusing. It gets very confusing. But when we talk about a legal guarding position, somebody's saying, The defensive player moved. Well, certainly he is moving. It's his job to guard the offensive player. But if he has established guarding position and he maintains that legal guarding position while he's moving, it's the point of who gets to that spot first. If he gets it and sets up both feet on the floor legally, then contact subsequent to the defender having both feet on the floor facing the player he's guarding, then that contact is going to be on the offensive player. That's it can get very, very complicated from this point forward, because if you're talking about offensive player with the ball or without, setting a screen on somebody, how close you can set it. There's a lot of other contact situations on movement and screening and legal screens, illegal screens. But this is basically what you're going to get the block charge call, and you have to know what is legal for a defender to do, what's illegal for an offensive player to do, and then what's illegal for an offensive player to do when they have possession of ball. Okay, they're each a little different, and that changes everything as far as offensive fouls when the player has control of the ball.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description there, Don. You see that all the time. Everybody wants contact. They want something called. There's not always something to be called. Sometimes it's, tangled feet. Sometimes there's, just the head and the shoulders are by the defender, and the contact really didn't do anything. And of course, you have to watch the flopping situation. It's gotten so bad that they've actually called that.
The rules in high school basketball are changing next year for the flop.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something else too that I think, as we talked about earlier, the girl that didn't get the ball to the official, I think there's some verbiage in there about getting the ball to the nearest official. We'll have to dig down into those rules that have just been released, but those will be a couple of good discussion points for a fewer podcasts down the road. Maybe, as we're in the NBA season still, there's no sense in really talking a lot about them, because it's not going to really come around until when practices start, end of October, whatnot, games starting in most of the country sometime maybe mid to end of November. So obviously we'll cover that new stuff best we can at that time.
Jimmy, you have any final thoughts?
No, just as he's talking about that legal setting screens and stuff, the perfect example was still the Iowa UConn game, where that girl literally, she's 6 foot tall to begin with, and she, what they say is when you put your arms out to your wingspan, that is your height if you go from one to the other. And she did way more than that. And I've seen stuff in here where they're still talking about that. Why are you talking about it? It's done. It's over. Leave it go.
Yep.
So don't talk about it.
So as we close today, I think our thought process is we're going to have, because we had a few people talk to us about story time, and now that our book is out there, I think, Don, I'm going to let you lead and close the show with this teaser.
Yes, I remember it well. That was the site of one of the most atrocious instances of officiating partners ever known to man. And
let's go back to that thing. That don't look like the same gas station.
Jimmy, get the sauce warmed up if anybody can tell us where that is.
No, I don't think it was Ohio.
I think it was a BP, and that sure as heck looks like a BP.
BP, all right.
I don't think. I think you got the wrong one.
So
what was that one taken at? Nah.
That's what we're asking. Who
I don't know. That's
recognizes
why
that
that's a
that
teaser for
scenario
next
No, I
week.
there?
thought maybe one of you guys, when you were up that way, went by. You saw Frickers over here and a gas station over here, but that don't look like the gas station for some odd reason.
Well,
Well,
you
this
probably have
may
blocked
be
it out in your
this may
mind.
be a story to have the gentleman that does the 2020 or Nightline or whatever it is, their Dateline or whatever. You may
Yeah,
have to look
but
into that.
but now you really can't tell because that night it was snowing and blowing and you got rain, so
Well, like I
that's
said,
I'm just saying.
But
I'm
well,
just saying.
well, now remember, when you have horrific things happen to you, the most sordid details are the ones you block from your mind.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Please, please.
All right.
So
Right. Yeah.
don't forget to join us again next week when we do story time. We may do a couple more of the most misunderstood rules. And other than that, have a good night, gentlemen. And thanks again for joining us.
Have a good
Yeah.
week, everybody.
Have a good week, everybody. Keep dry.